Welcome to section 1.4. This is the fourth session of the ISACA CISA exam prep series. In this session, we'll cover the types of controls and how to think about them. We'll answer several questions. What is an internal control and what should it achieve? How do we group controls by method and by purpose? How do controls live inside business applications? And how do they connect back to risk? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because controls are the heart of almost every audit. Imagine reviewing an online pharmacy. You need to know which controls stop bad things, which ones catch problems after they start, and which ones help you recover. Knowing the vocabulary lets you judge whether the mix is right. So what is an internal control? It's a mix of policies, procedures, and structures. They reduce risk to the organization. They give management reasonable assurance the objectives will be met, and that bad events get prevented or detected and corrected. Controls can be manual or automated. Who is responsible for them? The board and senior management set the tone, but every single person plays a part. And remember, controls address two things: what should be achieved and what should be avoided. What is a control objective? It's a statement of the result you want from a control. It connects directly to the broader business strategy. Objectives might cover efficient operations, or reliable financial reporting, or compliance with laws, or safeguarding your information assets. And what is a control measure? It's the actual activity that fulfills the objective. Together, they break big strategic goals into daily tasks. Tasks you can hand to a person in a job description. Now, do objectives change in a technology setting? The objectives themselves do not change, but how you implement the controls often does. What do technology control objectives actually cover? They form a set of high-level requirements for each process. Management has to make choices about them. Which objectives apply, which ones to implement and how, and which risk to simply accept. Let's name some concrete examples. Safeguarding information assets and keeping them current. Making sure development processes are repeatable and reliable. Protecting operating systems and networks. Guarding critical applications and customer data. That means authorizing and validating every input. Processing transactions accurately and completely. Securing the output that comes out the other end. And protecting the confidentiality of the database. A few more round it out. Authenticating the users of your resources. Building solid continuity and recovery plans. Having an incident response plan ready. Running effective change management. And setting clear service levels for outsourced work. How do we group controls by method? There are three families. What are managerial controls? These are the administrative ones: policies, procedures, training, and compliance reporting. What are technical controls? Also called logical controls. They work through technology and devices: firewall rules, intrusion detection, passwords, and anti-malware. What are physical controls? They physically limit who can reach a building or device: access badges, locks, and security cameras. Here's the catch with all three. You need a proper balance among them. A firewall alone is not enough. It needs trained staff, correct setup, and regular testing. Without those, people get a false sense of security. And the real risk is higher than anyone thinks. How do these methods become technology-specific controls? Each general method translates into a concrete procedure. A general rule to safeguard assets becomes access controls. Controls over programs, data, and equipment. The list is long. It covers strategy and management of the technology function. Access to data and programs. Development methods and change control. operations, quality assurance, and physical access, continuity planning, networks, and database administration, and defenses against internal and external attacks. How do controls live inside business applications? In modern systems, controls are built right into the application, so you evaluate them at the level of each process and task. You check security and separation of duties. You check periodic reviews and access approvals. Computerized applications add real complexity. They may have limited audit trails. They update instantly and can overload you with information. Let's look at common applications and their risk. Take an online store. It faces a high risk of injection attacks from the internet. Secure coding, code reviews, and input checks help. Take electronic data interchange between partners. Data in transit can be intercepted or altered. Encryption protects its confidentiality and integrity. Take email. It opens a door for social engineering. Spam filtering and phishing training cut that risk. Take industrial control systems. Systems like these run critical infrastructure. If compromised, they can even threaten human life. Network segmentation and strong authentication protect them. Take artificial intelligence and expert systems. They rely on learned data that can be biased. So confirm the right expertise built the assumptions. And where your team lacks the skills, bring in outside experts. Now let's group controls by purpose. This is the classification you must know cold. What is a preventive control? It stops a violation before it happens. Encryption, authentication, and a vault door. What is a deterrent control? It warns people off an attempt. Login banners, acceptable use policies, and visible cameras. What is a detective control? It signals that something happened without blocking it. Audit trails, intrusion detection, and checksums. What is a corrective control? It fixes the damage once a problem is found. Restoring from backups, fixing errors, and failing over automatically. What is a compensating control? It offsets a weakness you cannot fix directly. Maybe a technical or business limit blocks the ideal control. So you isolate a weak system behind strong perimeter defenses. A compensating control must reach the same result the original aimed for. Which control type is strongest? Preventive controls generally win. They stop the threat before it ever occurs. Picture an attacker with a stolen password. Multi-factor authentication blocks them at the door. A detective control would only flag the entry afterward. A corrective control would help you recover from it. Here's the simplest way to remember the mix. Preventive and detective controls reduce the likelihood of an event. Corrective controls mitigate the consequences. A healthy program needs both sides working together. How do controls connect back to risk? The relationship is direct and two-way. Risk is addressed through controls, and every control earns its place by the risk it counters. So when you evaluate a control, trace it back to a risk. Management must document and implement controls per its risk assessment. What if the controls fall short? If risk still exceeds the organization's tolerance, add more controls. If the ideal control is impossible, consider a compensating one, but it must achieve the same protective result. What about ready-made control frameworks? Sometimes an authority gives you a prescriptive set of controls. These offer a standard list to mitigate common risk. You'll meet several well-known examples. A prioritized set of critical security controls. A maturity model for software security. Reports on a service provider's controls. A security standard for handling payment card data. And a control matrix built for the cloud. How do you use a prescriptive framework? You map your controls to its objectives. Some items may not apply to your business. Say you accept cards but never store the data. Then storage controls simply do not apply. When something doesn't apply, document why formally. Finally, how do you evaluate the whole control environment? You review it against the risk-based plan, but you are not the only one watching. Management can monitor its own controls between audits. That catches problems before your next visit. It confirms standards are followed and policies are met. Can you rely on their monitoring? You can use it as added assurance over time. But check a few things first. That exceptions are fixed and lessons captured. That clear metrics and thresholds exist. And that independence concerns are considered. Then comes your independent evaluation. You weigh the evidence you gathered. You judge whether the operations are well controlled. You assess the strengths and weaknesses. And you decide if the controls meet their objectives. This takes real judgment and experience. So let's bring it together. Internal controls reduce risk and serve clear objectives. By method, they are managerial, technical, or physical. By purpose, they prevent, deter, detect, correct, or compensate. Preventive controls are the strongest, but you need a balanced mix. Every control traces back to a risk. Master this, and you can size up any control environment. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.